December 18th, 2015. The quarantine zone in the middle of Manhattan, later known as the Dark Zone, was abandoned by the government and the Joint Task Force. They left behind weapons, equipment, thousands of civilians, and the first wave of division agents. Although it is assumed that the majority of the first wave were killed or went rogue, there are a number that just simply disappeared. What we do know is that some of them managed to escape the quarantine zone and make their way to the outside of Manhattan Island. In this series, we're going to follow these agents and speculate on what happened to them based on their psychological profiles and the location of where their watches and other information was found. Raymond, or Ray Ovitz, had a tough start to life when he was orphaned at the age of 17, after his mother died of breast cancer. This resulted in him dropping out of school shortly after. Ray exhibits classic OCD symptoms and is easily bored if not challenged. He has an IQ of 186 and has achieved near legendary status in the white hat hacking community. Ray is capable of juggling massive amounts of data in his head. He isn't swayed by money or any other kind of bribe. What drives Ray more than anything is having a task worthy of his skills. By the age of 21, he had hacked into 2 multinationals, but was never prosecuted due to lack of evidence. All proceeds were donated to charity. Ray is a noted expert on internet privacy and works as a cybersecurity consultant. He holds deeply anti-authoritarian views and delights in shutting government backdoors into consumer information. Ray's watch and ID was found in the Garment district, in an alleyway. Suspicious of the government and always ready to stick it to the man, Ray was an interesting choice for the Strategic Homeland Division. This personality would have been the perfect candidate for Aaron Keener's cause. Ray's beliefs in freedom and hostilities towards authority would have been the prime target for Keener given how the events unfolded in the Dark Zone. The distrust of the government was already there. But it's hard to tell whether Keener was ever in contact with Ray. Based on the location his watch was found, it's possible that they never met. Ray was unfortunate with the route that he chose to take while he was moving away from the Dark Zone. He stumbled across an area completely overrun with cleaners. In fact, he was in the direct path of one of the cleaners' patrols, led by one of the lieutenants, and his last moments were likely at the business end of a cleaner's rifle. Though it's still possible that he made it through this area and kept moving towards key locations specified by Keener, as his high level of IT security experience would have been an integral asset for Keener's cause. From a young age, Angela was a high achiever. She holds a PhD in mechanical engineering from Stanford and is an expert in robotics. A pioneer in the use of robotics for people with special needs, she is also a mechanical prodigy who can build and/or fix anything. Angela tends to be quiet, but holds strong opinions and is not easily swayed. Her father was a former Olympic boxer and trained her from the age of 7. She continues to train and recently achieved a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Angela is driven, energetic, and self-sufficient. She works well alone, but can also function well while leading a team. A compulsive problem solver, she does not suffer fools gladly. It has been noted on her record that she is particularly harsh on those that don't pull their weight. However, she respects authority, as long as she feels authority has been earned. Angela's watch and ID was found underground in the Clinton district. Above this location there was a large number of rioter gangs in the area, but underground it was safe and easily defendable. On her way away from the Dark Zone, it appears as though Angela headed straight towards the New York Police Department only a block away. Unlikely to be swayed by Keener, she was probably trying to put some space between her and the rogue agents, and the police department would have seemed like a good place to get some backup from the local JTF. Unfortunately, straight away she would have noticed that the police station had already been gutted from the inside out. The LMB had torn the place apart, and there was evidence that the prisoners being held there were executed in a brutal fashion. No one survived. Angela escaped and found safety close by in an underground network of tunnels. After gathering her bearings, it's likely that she realized that she was on her own now. On one side there were rogue agents ready to take her out if she doesn't join, and on the other side there is the JTF and government that could already be working under the assumption that all first wave agents have turned rogue. At this point, Angela removed her watch and any way that she could be tracked. It's hard to tell where she went after this. She either headed north past Central Park to hide out until the situation sorts itself out, Or maybe she continued with her mission and has gone south to follow some possible leads. Level-headed and cool in a crisis, Tanisha is superb at complex problem solving. She inspires fierce loyalty in co-workers, if not the occasional jealousy. After studying airway traffic control at Fort Rucker, she then served at Al Udeid and Ashgabat and received the highest ratings at every posting. Reports talk about a situation where Tanisha safely landed all planes when the tower went dead at Ashgabat. She has now worked at all 3 major airports in the New York metropolitan area. She says that she finds the work soothing compared to her time overseas, but has publicly commented about potentially returning to service. Tanisha lacks empathy and cannot understand why not all of her peers can reach her high level of performance. This isn't to say that she's arrogant, she just genuinely doesn't understand. Tanisha's ID and watch can be found in the Flatiron district, in an underground car park. She had put quite some distance between herself and the dark zone, and had almost left the area completely. In her last known location, there were no hostiles anywhere near her, but for any number of reasons, much like a lot of the other agents that escaped the dark zone, she decided to remove her watch and ID and leave the area. Of all of the agents that we've looked at so far, there is very little to go on from here. She just vanished. There are a series of ropes that follow the path she was taking that lead directly into a large group of Rikers, including one of the Riker lieutenants. She could have got mixed up with them. But other than that, this area is relatively peaceful and abundant with supplies. It's possible that she's long gone from the area, but at the same time, she could still be hanging around, watching over these streets. Regan Murphy comes from a law enforcement family. Her father, grandfather, and 3 siblings all work for police departments. Understandably, her family was very supportive of her decision to follow her father into Worcester Police Department. Regan has been wounded twice in the line of duty, both times preventing harm from coming to civilians. She was decorated for both incidents. Regan was recruited into the US Marshal Service after 3 years on the force, and has served with distinction. On occasion, she seems eager to throw herself into harm's way. Her willingness to sacrifice for the job is admirable, but on occasion takes it too far. She has been written up once for lack of attention to self-care, and her superiors have spoken of difficulty finding marshals to partner with her due to her tendency to take risks. Regan's watch and ID can be found just outside of the Dark Zone, in the Kips Bay district. Loyal and not one to run from a challenge, she has simply fallen back to regroup. It's likely that she was pursued by a large number of Rikers that have forced her to take cover at the top of a nearby building. As a former police officer and a current agent of the government, the Rikers would have taken particular liking to her. If she was successful in pushing back the Rikers, it's very likely that she stormed straight back into the quarantine zone. From here, she likely came face to face with Aaron Keener, and we know what the outcome of this would have been. However, this would have been the best case scenario for Regan. The other possible outcome was that she was overrun by the Rikers, captured, and then taken to the nearby Striker stronghold at Lexington Event Center, where her last moments would have been less than pleasant. But the strange thing in all of this is that her ID was found in pretty much pristine condition, and it doesn't look like there was any sort of struggle at all. Removing her watch and ID doesn't really fit in with her profile. Regan was never going to run and hide from this situation, regardless of how dangerous it was. So why did she leave it behind? These are just my theories and speculations based off the story missions, encounters, intel, and psychological profiles of the agents. It's completely possible that they simply died after contracting the virus, or were killed by one of the many hostile factions. There are many different possible outcomes. But tell me, what do you think happened to these agents? In the next Lost Agents video, we'll be covering someone you may know a little bit about. This is about the time I like to thank my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys have been amazing, and a while back when I was put in a position of choosing whether to continue with YouTube or to take on a second job, it was you that kept me here, doing what I love. But I've decided to close down my Patreon page, because I really feel like I'm not able to provide the value that patrons paying me on a monthly basis deserve. I simply do not have the time right now, while also keeping videos coming out on a regular basis. People can still provide one-off donations if they'd like to, but if I was going to open up a Patreon page again, I'd be making sure that I'm in a position to further enhance the experience of those wanting to participate. Thanks again, and I'll leave you now with an image of my son dressing up for Halloween as probably the least scary Deadpool that you've ever seen. Cheers!